Hey, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Breaking Barriers Now. Today, I have an amazing friend of mine, a mentor, and someone that I really look up to. So I'm really grateful that he was able to come on. His name is Grayson Marshall Jr. He is teaching people how to think like an owner. He is the real GM, you guys, and definitely someone that you want to look into being around because he's helped me tremendously. And I appreciate every moment that I get to spend with him. So thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
It is absolutely an honor and a privilege to be on the show because I think that you have committed yourself to really shifting and moving in the direction that I'm talking about, which is thinking like an owner. I think so many of us want to achieve at a higher level. And unfortunately, it's challenging to achieve at a higher level when I have the mindset of an employee. So what I
Mm,
want to do is I want to bring people into a place of understanding that it's necessary to think like an owner. Now, it's counterintuitive to what we've been doing for our lives. You are in a double whammy because you not only were raised in an educational system that taught that, but then you were in the military for so many
right.
years. That was the same type of thing. So what was not productive was reinforced and you became proficient in that. So it's truly a testament to where you are in breaking barriers because people will, and on your show already in the future we're talking about the barriers in their lives, but the reality of it is that the barriers of the mind are what are the whole essential and the whole necessity that has to change, right? So when we're talking about thinking like an owner, I'm really talking about having a different perspective on everything that you do.
Yeah.
Literally, employees are just there to finish the job. Owners are there to look at where we're going in the whole grand scheme of things. Owners have a vested interest. Owners literally have an investment. They've got skin in the game. Most employees don't have skin in the game.
Right.
So their approach to everything is not as dire, so to speak, as maybe an owner is, because it's not my money. I don't care. It's like being in Vegas playing with house money. It's not my money. So I will gamble smart, but if I lose it, I don't care. And
Right.
unfortunately, that tends to be how we live our lives. When we have that mindset, well, I don't really care. It's not that we don't care about our lives. We just realize that we're okay when we're being comfortable. And I don't care
Hmm.
translates to comfort. That's what it translates. It doesn't mean you don't have a belief or feeling. It means that I can get comfortable and this is okay. I'll learn to navigate my comfort as opposed to challenge my boundaries, challenge my risk, go to the next
Mm,
level. So for me, it's about, and I've watched you um, make an effort to do that. And you now are on the other side of it because it was a challenge for you in the beginning. And I think
oh
that
yeah.
it's for everybody, which is why it's so important for me to really focus on a couple of things when I really talk to people. Number one, aren't you tired of having your destiny in somebody else's hands?
That's good.
I think that's a big piece of where we are. Aren't you worth more than they're paying you?
Hmm.
That these other pieces. How do you really establish what your passion is? How do you find it? Because what we don't understand is how to do that because we've never been taught to follow your passion. You've been taught to pick a career, pick a
Right.
job. So when you're in this space of realizing that that's limited,
Hmm.
realizing that it carries its own level of frustration. How do I
Yeah.
do this differently? And what we try to do is we try to just flip and go do something else. And Einstein put it like this: He says, "You can't fix a problem with the same mind that created it." So
That's
what we
good.
don't understand is the power of our subconscious really reminds us of what we know and what's
Yeah.
familiar to us because your subconscious is there to protect you.
Right.
When you step out to do something that's out of your comfort zone, fear is the emotion that's there. Well, your subconscious is trying to mitigate that fear because it wants to protect you. So when fear resonates, your subconscious goes into protection mode.
Hmm.
So now protection mode translates into overthink. That's just what it comes down to. So there's this mental battle that everybody faces on a consistent basis. They have the willingness in the beginning to do something different. Matter of fact, they're so tired of what they're doing, they'll try anything. One of my good friends, Dr. Gentry, says calls himself a triologist. He tried everything. But at the end of the day, you don't maintain consistency or don't move to that next level until you begin to adjust some of what your subconscious is there. So what we have to do is now we have to almost reset our subconscious to where when it goes into protection mode, it goes into faith mode. The protection in our mind has to be faith, not fear. So what we have to do is we really have to reestablish that. So thinking like an owner puts you in a perspective of, I've got to think faith, not fear. I've got to think bigger. So my whole purpose now obviously began with really working with folks in transition, especially athletes transitioning out of sports. But now I've come to understand that it's an everyday thing. It's necessary in every aspect of life. It's necessary in raising kids. It's necessary in relationships. It's necessary in marriages to think like an owner, because when you think like an owner, you literally become a leader. And what we really don't understand, especially men, you can't lead if you can't communicate. So men are supposed to be leaders of the household. Well, by the nature of the narrative of the world, men are restricted from or reluctant to communicate. So if I'm reluctant to communicate and I don't do that very well, then I can't lead in the right way. So if I can't lead in the right way, then I can't be an owner. If I can't be an owner, now I'm literally having relationships and parenting as an employee. So what employees do, they compromise. They don't lead. So now we get into compromise. We get into relating to our spouse, not as a leader and a wife, but as we're partners in the thing. So she's got masculine energy because of where she came from. Now we got two men fighting. When we have our kids, what people have done because they have an employee mentality is a lot of them have tried to befriend their kids and be friends with their kids. That's not the way an owner can have a relationship with an employee, but crossing those lines of being friends with your employees, you're asking for trouble. The same thing with your kids. When you want to be your friends with your kid, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for disrespect. You're asking for the lines of respect to be blurred. So when I want people to start thinking like an owner, I want them to understand what that means. You have a responsibility, and your responsibility isn't to be liked. Your responsibility is to lead. Your responsibility is to lead. So in all of the verticals that I deal with people in this navigating this transition, the main thing is about getting them to understand leadership. And remember, leaders aren't born, they're developed. We hear the old adage that natural born leader. No, you may have some natural characteristics. You may be a great orator. There may be some skill sets but you will never be vetted as a leader until you led somebody, until you've been through some stuff. That's just reality. So the more you're willing to go through, and I'm not talking about the more you're willing to create to go through, but the more you're willing to go through, then you produce yourself on the other side as a leader. So what we got to do is, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to really reestablish leadership. People have to be leaders. We have a misunderstanding of leadership. So in the world we live in today, leadership's about loudest. We think because somebody's yelling the loudest and they're getting the most attention, they're a leader. No, they're not. What you're doing is you're a Pied Piper of emotion. You're not leading people, because you would be leading people in the truth. What you're doing is leading people in an emotional narrative so you can get buy-in. See, real leaders don't need everybody to buy in. They just need the right ones to buy in. But we live in a world, and social media depicts this, that we want to be liked. It's a dopamine effect. It's a dopamic effect that goes with that. I want people to like me. So leaders have now transitioned into who likes me the most. And now we want to follow the people who have the most likes. Well, you can look through social media and we can look at the world, and the people with the most likes aren't necessarily great leaders. I have no problem with the Kardashians personally, but they've led a bunch of people astray and haven't led people to the right stuff, but they're the people follow. So again, part of what we don't do is we want to follow leaders, but because we conceptually don't understand what true leadership looks like, now leadership is who's most popular. And this becomes a challenge. So when I want people to think like employees, think like owners, you have to think like an owner. I have to make tough decisions for the greater good. I have to be willing to say, no, that ain't gonna work. I got to be willing to go against what you like in lieu of what's right and good. So that's why I've slowly changed this whole narrative for me, because I think this is a bigger pool for me to play in, because there's so many people that need this in a world where we've got self-esteem and insecurity issues that are abounding for all types of reasons. We really got to teach people how to be leaders, how to grab themselves, readjust and realign themselves with who they are first, and then teaching them how to lead other people in what they're doing. So shows like yours are going to be good, because people now get to tune in to people who have done those things. They've broken their barriers, they've gone through. They have, first of all, owned where they are. And that's a big piece of it. I've got to identify where I'm at, I got to own it. Then I've got to be willing to go through it. But the going through process is not for you to be on the other side raising your hands in victory. The going through is so that you can reach back and share with somebody else. In the book of Luke, Jesus told Peter, he said, the enemy desires to sift you as wheat. But he said, I prayed in your stead that your faith fail you not. And when you be lifted up, reach back and strengthen the brethren. See, what he told him was, you need to get yourself straight first before you can reach back and get anybody. Harriet Tubman is an example of that actually working, because when she decided she wanted freedom, she didn't take nobody with her, because I can't trust your fear while I'm going for this thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go by myself. And people need to take a page out of her book. She forsook her family. She left everybody, because I'm going to be free. She went and did it, but her freedom wasn't just selfish and for her soul. She got free so she could come back and prove to other folks that it can be done. And what you're doing on your show is inviting people on that have gone through, and they're showing people, hey, this can be done. And hopefully the people on here will be transparent enough, vulnerable enough, and authentic enough to put the hay down where the goats can get it. No, here's what I went through. This is real talk. This is real discussion. This is real life. And this is how we move through that in order to be successful on the other side.
Oh yeah, that's good. All of it is good. Yeah, and that's one of the big things too, is, that mentorship for, I think, well, with me, it's definitely the younger generation too, because, I don't want people to have to wait until they're in their 40s and 50s. I mean, it's great if they find it then, because at least they're not dead, right? But I don't want people to have to wait that long. So if we can reach people, whatever, high school, college, whatever it takes, and just, let them know it doesn't matter what you go through, but you can still believe in your dreams, and don't let anybody take those dreams away from you, and keep going and break the barriers and things like that. But with that, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, what got you here, because you've been on one hell of a journey. and I want to make sure that we kind of touch a little bit on that, like a little bit of, your upbringing and playing basketball, and, because you went one thing to the other and stuff. And I just want to touch on also your mindset, because you had to kind of break through some of those barriers of, what you were taught in school. And then I don't know if what you got in college or whatever, but, now you're over here on this other side where you're actually teaching other people how to think differently. So what was that journey like a little bit?
Well, if anybody was indoctrinated, I was, because I had parents that were lifelong educators. So my mother was a principal. My dad was a teacher. My sister is the current head of online education for the Department of Defense. So my household was entrenched in education. It was entrenched in study. It was entrenched in reading. I took SAT prep courses. I did all those things because my parents found value in all those things. So I became very proficient in what they considered was the formula for success, right? So to have people around you that were influencing you in this being the right way, it was the right way for them. It wasn't the right way for me. But I said this is me pleasing them and me not knowing how to do it any other way. I just got real good at this. So I always secretly wanted and had a business desire. That's what I had. But I had nobody to talk to about it. There was nobody around me who was even in an entrepreneur. But I mean, I remember early on delivering newspapers. I used to deliver newspapers before school. And back then, you delivered the newspapers during the week, and then you had to go collect for the newspapers on Friday. So I've been in that whole mode of working and get Christmas, you get a little extra. I mean, there was a lot going on. I've always had that. Growing up in DC, I worked basketball camps in the summer from the time I was 10 years old, 12 years old. So I've been in this, okay, how do I put this thing in perspective, how do I do this? And I loved work. But I didn't love it for the 9 to 5. I loved it for me doing what I was passionate about. So I was always passionate about coaching. I was always passionate about learning more. So I got a chance to get paid to do those kinds of things. So that subsequently led me to getting a scholarship at Clemson University and having a stellar career there with a number of successful accolades. Was probably more than I thought it would be. But at the same time, the plan I was on was one that frustrated me in the end because I didn't want to work for anybody else.
Yeah.
So I, unlike you, reached out to people to figure it out. Well, I didn't. So I learned the hard way. I was homeless at 27. And I was homeless at 27, not because I wasn't smart. I was homeless because the rules and the formula that school taught me was not conducive for the plan I wanted. It was the 40-40-40 plan. I was proficient in 40-40-40 plan. Work 40 hours a week, 40 years of your life. And when you retire, they give you a $40 watch. I was going to be good at that. But that's not what I wanted to do. So I wanted to deliver. So what I did was I had to, number one, separate from my family. So I moved to Florida. I'm from Washington, D.C. And I didn't have a lot of discussion with my family for a number of years. Not that I didn't like them, but I didn't want to hear that. So I fell on my face a lot. I was without money a lot. I was on the short end of things a lot because I was in the middle of trying stuff. And finally, I read enough. I connected with enough people. I started learning a different language, and then was open to some different ways of embracing the success that I wanted to have. And the people that I started listening to didn't look like my parents. In a couple of ways. Number one, they weren't Black Americans, number one. And number two, they weren't in the education system. They were in the business sector. A lot of them hadn't graduated college. So there was a whole different dynamic. But yet they brought to the table a lot of the missing pieces of my life. So I think that for me, once I got that, once I began to reprogram my subconscious, once I began to look at success being a formula and principle based, as opposed to based on luck and tenure, then I began to have a different perspective about it. So it was the books that I read. It was the new mindset I was willing to be open to embrace because it was so counterintuitive to what school taught me.
Yeah.
Because I had to be willing in this new place, Jody, to fail. However, school taught me that failure was bad.
Exactly.
So literally I was conditioned to avoid failure at all costs. Well, that mindset is going to keep you from being successful at all costs. So it's completely different. So I had to really, and what I had to do was, and I wrote this in my first book, before I published that book, I had to bring it to my mom and my sister. My father already passed away, but I didn't want to talk bad about the system that funded my life. I didn't want to talk bad about the system that put me in private school. Because that was the education system. My parents were compensated by a system that I didn't believe was really giving us everything we wanted. So my sister's philosophy was, great, you're telling the truth, but our hands are tied. Because I didn't want to ever discount what it blessed me. You know what I mean? So finally I was able to do that. And then I got a perspective and I was able to then put into play my quote unquote rebellious mindset. And when I mean rebellious, I'm not talking about negativity. Rebellious in the sense of, I don't agree with that. And I'm gonna just tell you, that don't make sense to me. I'm sorry. So that in and of itself allowed me to do that because now I was free to think on my own. I literally was never one. First of all, I was never one to buy into what everybody else is doing. As a matter of fact, if everybody else is doing it, I want to do this. I remember I had a sweatshirt growing up and it said, dare to be different. And there was a bunch of people across here, but one person upside down. And that was me. So that's what I've been. So I've been different. My circles have been different. I've never been one to subscribe to a certain racially significant group. I'm all over the place. White, Black, Asian, Hispanic. That's just me. I've never played. So I've never played in those things. I've dated that same way. I've been in business that same way. So I don't look at those things. So a lot of the things that people have just comfortably accepted, I just don't. So it keeps me I don't want to say alone at times, but it keeps me separated at times, and not because I want to
Yeah.
be by myself. I'm just not going to buy into that. So if that's what you're buying into, look, I don't want to argue with you. So if you think that, viruses go down one road in the grocery store, and I don't think that, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just not.
Yeah.
So that again, you can think that. I'm just not going to think that. If you
Right.
literally think that God is no respected person, but that you think that Black Lives Matter, then that's fine. I'm not arguing with you. You're not.
Yeah.
I mean, and so when it comes down to it, all lives matter. Well, all lives don't matter. They do. So let's not get there. If you think that Democrat or Republican is a reason to be divisive, I can't do that with you. Go ahead.
Right.
So when it comes to that, I literally find myself in a space where I'm going to stand for what I believe in, and that's just where it is. So, and I think thinking like an owner, that's what you have to do. When you go to start a business, you're going to have detractors like crazy. You're going to have people who say, why are you doing that? What are you doing? When you leave a career and move into something else, you don't know what you're doing. How you going to be a fitness person? All you do is lift weights. What you know? How you going to start a business? What you going to do with this? You know you
I've
can't
heard
do
all
it.
that.
Why you even trying that? No, it made no sense. Why don't you just shut up? Right? Because again, all they're doing is expressing what they're fearful of.
Right.
See, your lack of fear only makes them reflectively look at themselves and say, I'm not doing what I want to do. So let me literally try to pull you back, because every time I look at you, I'm reminded of what I'm not doing. Right.
Exactly. That's
So you
good.
have to be okay with that. I don't sleep like anybody else. I have people go, man, do you ever sleep? Well, why does that matter? When you call me to answer the phone, yeah, they don't worry about when I sleep. But again, it's because they can't operate that way. They can't do that. So because they look at themselves and their own personal accepted limitations, and I don't have those, then there's something wrong with you. When I look at what I teach in thinking like an owner, I really focus on Ecclesiastes 11:2, where it says that we should have 7 to 8 streams of income. And the Bible clearly says, because you never know what will happen in the land. Well, we're not taught to have more than one. And if you got more than one, you got two, then you're unstable. You don't know what you're doing. You can't make up your mind.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's so anti-Bible, it's not even funny. But when you literally think that way, and when you've been indoctrinated in that way, that's why the one verse of scripture that I've used to really outline application is Mark 7:13. And that's the tradition of man makes the word of God of none effect. What you've been indoctrinated in to believe, what you practice the most, you become proficient in. So if you've been indoctrinated into only one job, that's it, then anything outside of that is against your tradition, but that don't make it right. So when you go to do something, and here's what we do, Jody, we want people to agree with the new decision we're making. And you have to understand that you're going against every philosophy that they have, and they don't have an open mind. So you're asking somebody without an open mind, without a vision, without anything, to co-sign on what you do. And unfortunately, we married some of them. Unfortunately, we were born into some of them.
Right.
You just really have to decide that I'm going to do a different thing. And so I had to do that. And that's kind of where I was. So it led me away from a group of people into a different group of people. Now, I never lost those relationships, because those relationships were true in and of themselves. And over time, your consistency will allow those doors to reconnect, and they'll appreciate where it is over time. But if you're waiting on their approval initially to do something, if you're waiting on them to sign off on your success, then you are going to be heavily frustrated, because that's not what they're about.
Yeah. And that's no place to be. For anybody out there listening, I've been there, done that. I'm sure you have too, Grayson. And it's nowhere to be, because I tell people all the time, like I'm just a habitual people pleaser, and I think it stemmed from my upbringing, because like for me it was, I never knew where I fit in, and honestly I don't think I ever did really fit in, but I thought that I was supposed to, right? Like I was supposed to have this friend or these friends or whatever, and I needed to fit in somewhere, so I
Well,
was
that's what
always just trying to
Jody,
please people, but we can't please everybody.
But here's the thing, Jody, that's because of what you're indoctrinated into. See, school teaches you to be as alike as possible.
Right.
If you really look at John Gato's book, Weapons of Mass Instruction, and he did a book called Dumbing Us Down, and he was a New York City school teacher, a documented, successful, and award-winning City school teacher, but he really talked about what the actual school system's purpose and initiative is.
Yeah.
And it's to dumb us down, to make us as alike as possible. They want to remove you from your individuality. That's the whole key. So it's not that you didn't want to fit in. You weren't supposed to naturally,
Right.
but they want you to. So a lot of people just comply. They become complicit and they say, look, I'm gonna fit in, and this is where it is. And because the system desires you to fit in, they want to happen. You went in the military. One of the things they do in the military, cut your hair. They want all y'all to look the same. They want because they want you to fit in. Here's how we do it here. It's a forceful way to remove you from your individuality, even though we are created because of our individuality. None of us have the same fingerprints. 99.9% of each and every one of us is exactly the same, but there's a 0.1% that makes us different. Right. And unfortunately, the systems that we adhere to focus on the 99.9% of us that are alike, as opposed to the 1% that makes us different. Mm-hmm. And we can't embrace the 1% that makes us different, because now I've never learned to appreciate my difference. So because I don't appreciate my difference, who the hell do you think you are trying to appreciate your difference? Why are you trying to do something we're not doing? What, you better than us? And then that's their mindset. No, you just limited how good you are. And I'm not better than you. You just haven't recognized your full potential. You haven't recognized who you can be and what you can do. So I can't help you do that. So the best thing I can do is live it in front of you. My grandma always told me the best revenge is living well. Just live it in front of them. Let them see it. Let them see it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be a measuring stick of the ability for it to get done. Mm-hmm. That's what you're going to be. So they're going to look. And when they say it can't be, they can look at Jody and say, well, she's doing it. So now they have to relook at themselves. Unfortunately, the one thing we don't do, Jody, is we really don't tell the whole story when we're going through stuff.
Exactly.
That's one of the things that we have to be. That's why I don't mind being transparent. I do it in everything that I do. I mentioned I was homeless. I don't have a problem with that. Look, when I got divorced, I literally was on my own the first 3 months after. Had eviction notice on my door.
Yeah.
3 months out of being divorced. Now you're talking about somebody who built a multi-million-dollar business. In 2008, I started a franchise, and everybody who was an employee told me, man, you shouldn't be starting a business now. It's a recession. I said, well, first of all, I'm not buying into the recession, so you can do it. But let me ask you how many businesses you own again? Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and do this and build it where it needs to be. Walked away from it, started over, and God has just been good at my willingness to step out on faith.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I've honed that in. I've learned how to trust him and not trust my emotions. I've learned how to trust him and not trust other people. But the only way I became proficient at that is being willing to put myself in position to do that. So owners have that same mentality. They take a risk starting a business. Employees don't do that. So I've got to literally, payroll ain't there, sales are down, but I still got to keep this business going. And they revert to that as opposed to fear. That's why I want people to think like owners. Don't think like it's going away. Find ways to fix it. Right. Don't look at the problem, look at the answer. Even as Christians, folks want to look at the problem instead of focusing on the answer. Yeah. They spend time meditating on the problem, and the Bible says meditate on the word day and night. So we meditate on the problem. We got the problem down pat. We know what the damn problem is.
Overanalyzing the wrong thing. That's what that is.
Correct.
And I've been there too, so.
Figuring out what the answer is. And here's the challenge. Yeah. The answer is what it is, but not often it doesn't come when you want it.
That's it right there.
So the problem is always there. The problem, we want the answer to come as hard and strong as the problem does. That's not how this works. Yeah. That's why his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. We got to understand that there's a whole different way that he does things. And because we have been stripped of that, taking him out of school, having church be more about religion than relationship, we don't get the real instruction on how to walk by faith. We just don't. So what you'll find is you'll find people who don't have the same spiritual foundation as you actually succeeding in the principle-based living because they learned how to do it. Right. They learned how to just walk by faith because there's no rule that says you have to be a believer for this to work. Yeah. It's very, very open, and it says whosoever, whatsoever. So he's leaving the door open so these principles work. So what you need to understand, like owners, if owners understand how business works, see, I learned this a long time ago. I'll never be broke because I know the formula. The guy that started Domino's was bankrupt 4 times. I don't think he cares about that at this point.
Probably
You know,
not.
at the end of the day, if you know the formula, it doesn't matter what the economy is. It doesn't matter what's going on. There's always a way to make money. So if you're focusing on a way to make money, no matter what the situation, you'll find a way to make money no matter what the situation. Owners do that. Employees don't. Employees complain about the situation. They get upset that it's not where it needs to be. You need to do this for me. That is not, so I need people to think like owners. Owners are in it for the long haul. Employees will leave you in a minute. And when we start getting relationships that are the same way, relationships walk away when they feel like it because they got employee mentality. When you got an owner's mentality, you stay it out. I believe that's why I stayed in my former marriage as long as I did, because I got an owner's mentality. I just don't quit. I don't give up. You know, that's just how I am. So the way you do anything is the way you do everything. You have to apply it to your life, period. And so again, it's adopting a new way of thinking. And that's the important part for me when it comes to thinking like an owner. I got to get you to think differently. You're doing what an employee would do. What would the owner do? The owner would stay late. The owner would stay late. If the owner had to cut back employees, the owner has to now start working. And the owner has to work late and come in early. But that's not what employees do. Employees go find a better situation where they don't have to do any more than they want to do.
Yeah.
But yet they want the rewards and the benefits, and they want the same thing as the owner gets. No, you got no skin in the game. You're not risking anything. I'm risking everything. And if you want to be successful in life, you have to have that same mentality. I got to risk everything. Here's what I'm gonna do. If you want a healthy relationship, you want to be in love, I got to risk everything. I got to risk my heart. I got to put everything in this thing if I want to get out of it. Anytime you hold back, you're never going to get what's happening. Jody, you're a trainer. If somebody came and you wanted to work out, but they holding back every session, they're not mad. So their bench press when you started was 200, and 6 months later, still 200. They ain't doing nothing.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You naturally should go up just because of the repetition. But if you're still holding back and you just want to stay right where you are, you're not going anywhere. You've got to do this, which is why you train them with different body parts, different exercises, because we can't do the same exercise every day. Your muscles develop a memory too, just like your subconscious.
Yeah. Well, so the biggest thing for me was I told people now, I'm like, hey, I'll help you with the other 95% of life, because that's what's going to help you inside the gym. It's the time management, the believing in yourself, the nutrition part of it, and learning how to fuel your body and stuff like that. Because I think people get so, they just rely on the workouts, and, our bodies need other things. And so that's what I've kind of transitioned to now. But you're right. It's like, yeah, if we just keep going through the motions, we're just going to be going through the motions. You're not, and that's everything in life. You're not going to get anywhere. And that's why I tell people, like, I don't judge anybody, because, hey, guess what? I was in your seat, so, and I'm just now kind of coming out of it. So I would never judge anybody. I want to help other people because I know what that feels like, and it sucks. It sucks.
I think,
So,
you talked about nutrition. I think, when you talk about nutrition, people will think they know how to eat.
Oh yeah,
and
I get it all the time.
They know how to eat based on what they've been taught to eat, but they're not eating to maximize their body. They're not putting in nutrients. They don't know what's nutrient dense. They don't know what empty calories. They don't realize that literally when you cook food, you take all the darn nutrients out of it. They don't understand. I mean, there's so many things in them. They don't know what live probiotics are. They don't know what those things are. Plant-based. If you say plant-based, they think you eating, come on, but they don't get that. So you got to give them a different vocabulary and show them how it transitions into what they're actually asking you for, because they thought it was a certain way.
Yeah.
And they thought eating things a certain way. They didn't realize that eating healthy fats is a good thing. People think fats are bad. No, they're not if they're the right ones. Because
and carbs are the same way. Everybody gives carbs a bad rap. I'm like, hey, your body needs carbs. Like, your brain needs carbs. Like, come on.
So we have to begin to change those things, which is why, again, the ownership mindset puts an emphasis on you being at your best.
Yeah.
You doing everything it needs to take to make you run in the business run. Owners don't make excuses. Employees do.
Exactly.
Owners can't call in sick.
Right.
No, there's just a different mentality. Owners got to work through pain. Owners got to
Yep.
work through sickness. They just have to. But employees, how many sick days they got, man? Bump them jokers a day. I ain't doing nothing.
Yep.
I mean,
And I hear it. Oh my gosh, I hear that all the time.
that's the mentality, you know, or when they're working on, I'll get it tomorrow. You know, I mean, it's not a priority for them, but yet they want the results of someone that's putting time on priority. So that's why thinking like an owner is such a big piece of what needs to happen as we're teaching people how to transition from one place in life to another. I've got to change the way that I think.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question real quick, because we're talking about the school system and stuff like that. So if there's any kids out there listening, like how do you mentor kids, high school, middle school, high school? Because, if there's any kids out there, like I said, if they're listening, maybe their parents are listening, hopefully. But how do you kind of mentor them to where it's like, okay, you got to get through school, right? But how do you kind of shift that mindset while you're in school? Like, what are some tips that you give to the younger generation for doing that?
Well, the one thing I do is that we're going to do something that they won't teach in school, and that's find your passion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you that you can monetize your passion. I don't care what it is. There's a woman that's making $2 million a year teaching people how to crochet. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's your passion, you can find a way to monetize it. Most kids don't understand that can be done.
Right.
So if they can monetize, for example, there was a time when playing video games was a waste of time. Now you got kids making thousands of dollars playing video games. Right. I mean, so at one time it was thought you can't do that. Well, people now are getting paid for their passion. They love video games, so now they're getting paid to develop them. They're getting paid to play them. There's so many things that they get a chance to do. There was a time when skateboarding, all those things, those little extracurricular activities you did were just hobbies. Well, Tony Hawk proved you can make a multi-million-dollar business out of skateboarding. He's in his 50s, skateboard. So whatever you really love, you can actually monetize it. Once you know that you can monetize it, then it becomes a passion. You got to eat, sleep, and breathe it is what you have to do. And once you do that, now the doors will be open for where that goes. Yeah. If somebody's a comedian, well, Kevin Hart will show you that you can take comedy to movies, you can take comedies to business. I mean, there's a lot of places you can go if you're just passionate about one thing. So I think it's really developing and encouraging kids to find your passion. And you might not find it right away. But if you realize at the end that I can monetize my passion, you might like to cook. Somebody might like to make coffee, who knows? But if that's your passion, you can monetize it. And in a world that we have of e-commerce and global sales without leaving your home, you can find customers all over the globe. You may find a niche customer base in a different country. Mm-hmm. And you can literally do it. So again, what we have to do is take the limits off of what we've been instructed to as limitations. We got to take them off. Take the limits off. And those are the things I talk to them about. How big can you see it? Yeah. That's one of the first things I do. I got to get you thinking bigger than you are right now. Because people see an acorn and that's all they see. Well, some people would see a tree. Other people see a forest. I don't know where you are, but what do you actually see? Yeah. And that'll tell you where I can take you, because I can't take you any further than your mind can conceive. What are you thinking? And people are afraid to think big because nobody around them is thinking big. And they usually get ostracized or criticized for thinking big. Oh, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Yeah. And they're hoping you don't do it so that they can feel better about themselves not doing it. Yeah. That's good. That's what I would tell. I tell people, never tell your dream to a dream killer. I've definitely done that in the past too. And that's what we have to be careful with, because we think, especially, family members and people that are close to us, and we think our best friends are going to support us and things like that. And so those are the people that we usually tell our dreams to. And then what happens? They literally just slash them. And it's up to us. We have to make that choice. Are we going to allow them to kill our dreams? Or are we going to say, okay, that's what your thoughts are. That's your opinion, but I'm going to keep working because this is my dream.
And I think that's where we just really have to make that choice and make that decision. And sometimes we have to cut people off, and it sucks. It's hard. And, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. And like you said, a lot of those connections, they'll come back because then they're going to wonder, well, what are you doing now? Oh, you were working your dream that whole entire time.
And they're going to want to know what you did. They're
Yeah.
going to now, you doing it gives them a different level of belief about themselves.
Yeah.
It's just like Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was the first man to break the 4-minute mile. And the same year that he broke it, 13 other people broke it that same year. But it was believed you couldn't run a sub 4-minute mile. You believe that till somebody does it. Then as soon as somebody does it, everybody's like, oh, it can be done now. So now everybody's doing this. So you have to have that mindset. If people think, if you think you can, you're right. And if you think you can't, you're right too.
Yeah, that's true. And talking about the education system and stuff like that, because I told someone not too long ago, I was like, hey, I don't regret any of the school that I did. I definitely don't. I think I got a lot out of it. I learned a lot. But because that's one of the questions. It's like, well, should I go to school? Should I do this? I mean, even me, I was looking at working on my doctorate, and it was just like, okay, I need this, I need that. But no, I really don't. I got everything inside of me, and you helped me realize that too. And, but I have people come to me and they'll say the same thing. And it's like, do you feel like you need that to be significant? And that's really that big, I think that big picture, but that programming too, where we have to just start kind of peeling the onion back and realizing, why do we not have that self-worth, and just learn how to believe in ourselves without all those titles.
Because as an employee, you need those certifications. It's the only way you can move up. I think like an employee, I have to have this in my job. So, and I'm looking at my job, the people with master's degrees get paid more. Right. The people with doctorate degrees get paid more. So the mindset says, if I want to move up, I've got to acquire more degrees, more certifications. That makes me more marketable. Well, that's because you have an employee mentality. Most of the people who work are working for high school dropouts. They're working for college dropouts. We're taught to hire the A students because the A students will be steward. Why? Because they want the recognition. Right. They want to be employees. That's what they want. Yeah. Hire employees because they will work your plantation like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But that's why. So do people need it? What I told my kids, my kids learned early on what running a business was like. So only one of my kids, none of my kids have finished college. My oldest daughter is finishing now, 31, but she's only doing it because she chose to work a secular job, and it's now necessary to advance in the second job because these are the required things. Right. So what I told them was, I said, the world's going to ask you for it. If you're going to do it the world's way, then you got to play by the world's rules. That's what you got to do. If you're going to do it your way, then know that the world isn't going to comply. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tougher. It probably will take longer. So you can ask yourself, are you willing to do that? So what I'm honest with people about is what is required. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required, and of him will much be asked. So I tell them what's required. Sleepless nights are required. Yeah. Not eating sometimes is required. Not making any money sometimes is required. Being a better steward of what's going on is required. Being not weary and well doing is required. I mean, there's a whole lot that's required here. And when you lay it out to people, after a while, I'm like, no, it's not worth all that. Then this isn't what you want. So get to a point where you stop asking for desiring this, because what you desire requires this.
Right.
And that's why it's so important for us to tell the whole story, because people see the glory, but they don't know the story or the glory.
Exactly.
So the reality is that let me tell you what this is really like now. Let me tell you what it truly is, as a hopeful romantic in my life. And not having a significant other is challenging at times. Coming home to an empty house is there. But here's the deal. I got an owner's mentality. So I got to be okay with that. Right. I got to do what it takes. That doesn't mean being an owner is this easy life that you live, and it's not without complications, not without challenge. The hell it is. You're going to go through much more as an owner. The beautiful part about it, the reward on the other side, is where the real blessing is. That's where it comes down to. But you've got to be willing to go through all this to get there. And so that's why it's important for us to be authentic, vulnerable, and transparent, because we don't want to trick people into buying into something they don't want. Look, here's what it takes, boo. I'm just telling you that right now. If I was coming to you to work out for an event, let's say I want to be in the next, macho jump, you come to me and say, well, look, it's going to be a 15-week program, whatever week program, right? And you're going to tell me you got to eat this
I don't play when it comes to that.
You know what I'm saying? You got to eat this way. Your diet got to be this strict. And after a while, you'd be like, man, bump all this. I want some chicken. You know what I mean? If you're not committed to that, then you're not going to get the results that you want, right? So it's important. So before you take on a client, look, here's what's going to be. Here's how I'm going to be, because this is the outcome you want. Here's what it looks like. And people, that's what I want. When they get into it, nah, this ain't what I want. I thought it's what I want. So in doing the same thing with life, we got to be real honest with people.
Yeah.
And we got to call people on their ish.
Yeah.
And that's just what, that's what it comes down to. And people don't want to be called on their ish because you're making them look at themselves.
Yes.
They'd rather do what the world teaches, and that's blame the external reason. No, we need to address the internal issue.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do that. So that's why only a small percentage of people in the world become successful to the level that they desire and have the life that they want, because of what it really takes and what it takes ongoing. This is the lottery. You got to do this on a regular. This has to become a lifestyle.
Yep. It has to be a lifestyle. Yeah. That's true. Man, we could probably go on for a couple hours here, but unfortunately I'm going to have to wrap this up. But I appreciate definitely all the insight that you've given. I'm sure we'll do this again. I know I'll be on yours too. And, at the end of the day, it's just about lifting people up. But you guys remember, we've been there and we understand it. And there's only one reason why we are doing anything different from the people that have the employee mindset. And that was just based on a choice that we made. And that choice is what takes us to different levels in our lives. So, Grayson, thank you again for coming on here. Let us know, how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
They can go to my website, therealgm.live, therealgm.live, or they can email me at Grayson at graysonmarshalljr.com, graysonmarshallJR.com. I'm easy to find. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I do podcasts.
You can Google him, you guys. I did that.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7:15, I do a podcast. Every Saturday morning, I do a podcast, the GMV show. Every Sunday night, I do Men Unfiltered. And then Wednesday night, starting tomorrow, I'm doing the realgm.live, Think Like an Owner. And we're going to be having these discussions with people that have made this transition or in the middle of making this transition. And we're not only going to find out how they succeeded, but we're going to find ones that are still in the process and maybe have a challenge. I want it to be a real conversation about what it really takes and what it really looks like. So I think for the first time, I'm going to be doing more interviewing and questioning than anything else. And what I'm going to find is people are going to come probably under their own personal scrutiny when I get on, because it's not going to be, it won't just be a normal, it'll be, well, why aren't you doing that? And because I want them to be honest with themselves. I think that the Real GM Live, the Real GM Live is going to be one-on-one. I want to be like Anaya Van Zandt. Like, I want people to come on who may have been successful. Let me get in you a little bit too. And that, and just say, here's the next level too. So not only do I want them on my show to give their testimony, but I want to get them on the show and kind of get in there, mess a little bit. Well, okay. Well, you said that's the issue. What are we doing for it? What are we not doing? Why are we still there? And I hope that brings a benefit to as many people as well. I always want to coach. People say ABC, always be closing. I use ABC as always be coaching. And that's what it comes, for me, that's always, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always coaching. I don't care where it is. My kids always say, Daddy, this isn't a life lesson time. They ain't going to show it is.
That's my daughter says that all the time. Mom, stop life coaching me. No, not going to do that.
This is a teachable moment, boo-boo. This is a teachable moment. Cars on the side of the road with no gas. This is a teachable moment. This is a definitely teachable moment. You ran out of money. You need me to cash app you. This is a teachable moment. Yeah. Before I cash app you, we're going to have a discussion about it.
You're going to have to listen.
So that's kind of where, I am with this. And I told you, I'm so proud of the things that you're doing. I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate that.
And doing the things that you are aspiring to do, and doing them without reservation, but doing them with the challenges that you face. And
Yeah.
people will never know the personal challenges or anything until you decide to tell them. But I think once they understand what you really had to go through, and you said 95% of what you teach in your trainings is outside of the gym, when they realize that that's true and real, and they'll understand what the impact of learning those things does to the success that they want to have inside
Yeah.
personally, then it makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. That is so true.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good way to kind of segue into the end here, because that's a good final thought, you guys. But just remember, the journey is not easy, and one of the biggest things that I always tell people, and I've had a lot of guests, and we've talked about this, is the people around you that are important too. Make sure you got people around you that believe in you. Grayson, just in the short time that I've known you, you've definitely helped me tremendously. So I really appreciate that. You've believed in me. I've got a few other people, and it's not going to be a lot of people, you guys. It's not going to be a lot of people. It's not going to be the people that you thought were going to believe in you. To be very frank, but don't let that deter you from where you desire to be. This is you versus
Exactly.
you, and nobody else can take that away from you.
Exactly.
So again, Grayson, thank you so much for joining me today. You guys, this has been another episode of Breaking Barriers Now. I am so grateful for where the show has gone and where it's going to continue to go. And we're just going to keep pumping out good content. And I just pray that this is blessing somebody out there. So thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, get all the updates, and let's keep this going. So God bless everybody. Have a great day.